Welcome, everybody. It is a Tuesday, and you are joining me. I'm Rich Teslo, and this is the Two Guys Tech Homelab Hour live stream. I hope you guys are having a wonderful evening. It's a little cold here in Oregon. We're supposed to get some snow tonight, so not that you guys care about that, but I care about that. Anyway, let's get down to it, guys. So, what do you say? I wanted to talk about a few things. I got a lot of stuff I want to show you. I got some fun stuff, and depending on how big the audience is we have tonight, maybe we'll see if it works out like I think, because it's all about audience participation and all. But as a reminder, if you're watching this, if you are here to ask questions about HomeLab, that's what this is all about. So you can ask HomeLab questions. You can ask me questions. That's what it's about. So make sure to throw those in the chat. And first thing I wanted to get out of the way and talk about today is, one, so this morning I'm getting set up for the show, and that's just kind of this whole live show every week thing is kind of as a weird experience, but I'm getting used to it. It's like it's starting to normalize, and start up the streaming computer. I have a computer that's like right over here. That's Jason. It's good to have you. Thanks for joining us. I start the stream PC up. It's running Windows 11, and it was a Windows 10 box. Got upgraded to Windows 11, and it popped up and asked me to basically re-register my copy of Windows 11. I was like, what the hell? Had to dig through the stuff to find it, and find my license key and throw it in there. And it's like, oh, thank you, but I didn't do anything. Nothing's been plugged in or unplugged. Microsoft up to Microsoft things, I suppose, huh, friends? Levix, thanks for being here. I am in the wrong thing over here. That's why I can't see people talking to me. So I wanted to talk because I'm super jazzed about the 3D printed bezels that I did, and kind of give you like a backstory about where that all comes from, because it's a little out of the blue. I do the HomeLab Gear thing where I design parts for doing for stuff for your home lab, for containing hard drives and sensitive electronics and that kind of stuff, and so I have obviously a lot of experience in 3D printing, and I'm a passable CAD designer. Thanks, dude. I just couldn't believe how well they came out, because I think I sent it in a tweet, or not tweet, excuse me, like on a Blue Sky post and threads where I'm like, there's these times in your life where you like do a thing and you're like, oh, that's neat. And then you look at it and you're like, wow, I'm really proud of myself. I did a thing and it was actually really good. So that was one of those moments, right? I'm not saying that I don't have those moments, but it's rare enough that I was like, whoa, this is special. So, I was walking by the server cabinet down the garage, because that's where my home lab is, in my 42U cabinet. And I've got 3 Supermicro nodes, and they're of different generation, and they are different models, but they're all 2U. So one is a 4 node, which I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about on the channel. And then there's the 2 node, or excuse me, the single node that is my legacy Super SAN server, which is my primary storage server running TrueNAS scale. And then there's the new one, right? The new one that I made the video about, and I don't have a video this week. It's going to come out next week about, the next phase of that, like future storage thing for me. And they're all slightly a little different because they're different models, but they're essentially all the same, like, dimensions. So as I'm walking by, I'm like, you know what? I think I can solve this. And so I tried. And so I just want to go through and I'm not showing these off because I just think they're neat. And so I wanted to get to it. So the first thing I want to do is let's get to the design. We're going to go straight to the design first. So this is the design I made. And as an aside, so this is Tinkercad, which shows you anyone who's actually a designer, like who does CAD stuff in real life. If you hear me say Tinkercad, that's like, oh, I know where he is. He's one of those guys. And yeah, because my background in like design comes from images, right? Like making things, raster images and that kind of stuff. And like CAD I feel like people who are really good at CAD are people who went to school, or they understand like parametric CAD and that kind of stuff. That's not me. I'm like, I like a picture. Can I then extrude and change a picture? So more like sculpting in a way. But Tinkercad is totally free, which is another big benefit. I don't have to pay like a lot of money for it. And so I just started putting some designs together. And just as an aside, because I like to show behind the scenes, like some sort of like Wizard of Oz deal. Where is that? So these are all like iteratively all the other designs that I've made. Like the first one I came up with was these teeny weeny tiny little holes. And I thought to myself, well, it's probably going to affect airflow, right? So and this was all like, I have it's called a precision ruler, but it's basically just a metal ruler, and measured all the dimensions in the front of the bezels of the server, or the location in the front of the TU servers where we go, and then kind of just built around that. And then I was trying to figure out like, okay, well, I like, bigger hexagons. As someone said in a reply to the short, like hexagons are the bestagons. I'm like, yeah. Anyway, and Brandon was like, Dell uses hexagons. I'm like, I know, that's fine. These don't look like Dell hexagons. So I tried to do a bunch of like, well, I want my logo to be on the front of it because, of course. And so I did a bunch of effort to try to like figure out how to put the logo on it and make that look cool and all that kind of stuff. And there's just ones like, this is nice. And then I tried to print it as one entire piece on my Prusa printer, which this thing is magic. Like it's kind of I don't want to say it's a modern marvel in terms of like printing reliably and high quality, but it's only got like a 360 millimeter by 360 by 360 bed, which is huge for a 3D printer typically. But I can't, the bezels are like 445 millimeters just in length. So it wasn't going to work. And I tried a bunch of goofy stuff like printing at an angle. And in the end, kind of went back to like, well, I need to split it in half. And when I split it into half, then I can't have like a neat bespoke looking logo. That just doesn't, I can't do that because there's no way to really attach it, right? There's gaps and all that kind of stuff. So then I decided, okay, well, I have to split it, and then I need to find a way to reconnect it. And so this is that design, my working design. And this is literally half of it right here, right? These are all, you can just go, whoop-de-doo, look at the back side of it, right? I want that not to be messed up though. Okay. And then, so this guy, the center plate, I realized, well, if I have to put a logo on it, I need to find a way to bind them together. And thanks, Levix. I appreciate that. That's very kind words. Oops, and Brandon was doing the work there. So, so with this guy, it looks like a bottom of a hiking boot or a tennis shoe, and it is designed to literally fit right there, like right in the center of this. And then when these two are bound together, and if I like angle this, you can see how these are like slightly lower than the ones around it. Here's a little bit of that doesn't print like that. So that's a mistake on my part. You didn't need to see that. I just showed how the sausage is made. But because there's the center support in the middle of the bezel, so it fits in there. And guys, when you make things, like if you 3D print and you've done any of this stuff long enough, like you put this thing together and like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to work. I've done all the measurements, like the whole like adage of measure twice, cut once sort of thing. Like you measure 10 times and then you measure again. And you're like, okay, I think I got this. I think this works. And then you send it off to the printer and it just doesn't work. So you get used to screwing up and wasting plastic, at least in the beginning, but it ended up working just phenomenally. And I'll show you this quick video. I'll throw this up here real quick. And then I want to show you something. So here's two of them together side by side. And hopefully this isn't playing audio. I think it's not. So hopefully it doesn't look washed out. It looks a little washed out on my screen, but that looked pretty good earlier. But, and then you can just grab it, pull off. They friction fit for the ones that don't have the hole lines up, the holes that line up. Well, that's a good point. I'll show that in a second here. But yeah, so we go back to this. The other thing is the super micro bezels, or the edge of the case, they have these little like holes in the side. So there's a nubby thing right there, and that nubby like slots in. So it kind of holds itself. But I'm gonna go back to the main screen because I just got to ask you guys. So let's go full screen, Mr. All right, so this is the red one, right? And you can see it's really face on. You don't get a whole lot of the red, which was kind of the idea. But then you see at an angle, you can get the red because the inside of the hexagons is color printed in different color. So that's it. And for the most part, there it is. You can kind of see how it fits through. I have a little bit of extra cleanup in there. What I'm interested to know is I also had time between that yesterday and the show today to print a yellow one, a little yellow there instead. Question is, which one do you guys like more? Do you like Mr. Yellow or Mr. Red in terms of it? So I can't, I mean, I chose red, black, and white because they're the channel colors, right? Like branding 101 sort of thing. So, like, so that's why I went with the red, and it looks good from an off angle. The yellow, this filament I have is a little kind of like a whitish yellow, so it doesn't really pop as much. But okay, so Leavix likes the, I appreciate that. I think the red looks the best too. But yeah, so just super jazzed in it, and like I said, this, if I go back to my thing here, does it do the right one? Didn't. So this printer that I have, I upgraded later on after buying it to have the 5 different extruders, so I can print 5 different filaments, 5 different colors in a print at a single time. So the print job is all done in one big go. It took like 17 hours, which is a lot, but it's what it takes. And yeah, so I'm a big Prusa fan. I kind of always have been, and the other alternative would be like a bamboo. But the thing about this, which I think is superior in my opinion in terms of like just overall printability, is that the Prusa XL doesn't have an AMS like the bamboo guys have, and this is a great technology. I have a really close buddy who's a, a bamboo X1C that has the AMS, but it wastes so much plastic because there's only one extruder inside the unit. So every time it needs to change color, he just has to dump out a ton of the color. Skylar, what did you say? Let's get this up there. How's Proxlux been working for me? You're working a switch permanently from HomeLab. I mean, we can look at it. Let me pull it up super fast while we're talking here, because I can show you what the current status of it is. And I have a self-signed certificate, because who doesn't? Show me potato salad. There we go. So we'll log into it. We're gonna bounce around a little bit. That's cool. So yeah, it's working great. Like it has been a solid system, right? And actually, we could even look at PDM, but it is. I cannot complain. In fact, matter of fact, while we're here, I did an upgrade today of my updated Nextcloud to the newest version. And I'm doing the same stuff I was doing with VMware. Like I did Terry, good evening. Good to have you. Where's it at? So my snapshots, boo, 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 boo. I need to delete the snapshot because my upgrade was successful. So yeah, if you are thinking about moving, do it. I think that it's been, I hate to say it because I kind of feel bad about saying it because I was such a dyed in the wool VMware guy, but I'm starting to realize that virtualization is virtualization. And it hurts me inside because everybody's got their favorite team. But so yeah, so Proxmox is working great. I highly recommend you try it. It's a bit of a learning curve, but get to it. You will be happy you did it. All right, so back to what I was saying. So if there's any 3D printers in the audience, I mean people who are 3D printing, not like actual 3D, but anyway, I did throw up this model. And I will inside the show, the liner notes for the live show after it's done. I'll put this in there in case anyone wants to look for it. I put geez, I have 5 files in there. So it's broken down into basically, if you have a big enough printer, go for the whole giant bezel and just go to town. If you have a smaller printer, like a smaller bed, you want to print it, you can basically take the left and the right and print it individually. There's files over there. And then like this is a blank. We can click on these. I think they can even loading model. So, because I don't want to like, I want people to, like anytime you make something like I want people to use this stuff if they want to use it, right? Oh, Terry, hold on. I'm sorry. I have to put this up. Even Hyper-V. Oh, man, are you trying to hurt me? You're hurting me deep. That hurts. It hurts bad. I'm just gonna ignore that comment, Terry. Thank you. If you have a 3D printer and you want to build your own and you have a HomeLab and you want bezels you want to print, you can just take this part and you can throw it in Tinkercad and you put whatever design you want on it. Or, if you're feeling entirely adventurous, you can try to just glue the halves together. I didn't do that's just a picture. I didn't try to glue the halves together because I didn't feel like it was enough, right? These pieces right here, I can, for funsies, because why not? I'm going to turn this off just for a second. And go back to full screen. Cool. So here's the other one. I'm going to pop it apart because but it's on there, right? You can hear me forcing it off. This is what you wanted to do on your live show. So there's the half, right? There's no glue, nothing goofy on it right there. And then there's the other half. You can kind of see that, right? How the works. And I found that even this by itself, just by forcing these together by friction fit, assuming your printer can friction, has good enough tolerances, you can friction fit this together, and then it's not going to come apart. Like even I dropped one on the floor earlier, and it didn't like shatter into the 3 constituent pieces. So you can absolutely do that. But if you are interested in doing it, I even put our bezel on there, or the logo thing. So I'll put that in there. Just, you can remix, you can do whatever you want with it. Just say where it came from. That's all I care about. But yeah, so we got lots of good chat going on about Hyper-V. So that's if Terry really wants to talk about Hyper-V, I think the thing that I would say is my only concern, my only reservation on Hyper-V is that I don't know what Microsoft's planning to do with it. I know what Nutanix is going to do with it, and we all know what Broadcom's doing with VMware now, which is basically killing it, squeezing the blood and the juice from it. And if you look at like Proxmox or XCP&G, you know what their intentions are. It's very obvious. I still don't really know, honestly, what Microsoft plans to do with Hyper-V, short of using it as a further on-ramp to get all of your on-premise gear into Azure. Because, what's it called? Azure Stack now? That's what it's called. But, Microsoft sells you can go to Dell or HPE or whoever your hardware vendor is, and you can buy from them something called Azure Stack. It used to be called Azure Stack HCI. Someone in the chat's going to correct me here. And it is basically clusterified, control protected by Microsoft, an entire, Hyper-V based system. But their intention with it is to be able to make it fluid for you to move those workloads between Azure native and on-premise. And that makes sense, although it does feel like if you do that, you're going to really be locked into using Microsoft stuff. And for some businesses, that's fine. Like if your business is like, we're 100% Microsoft, we are never going to look at a hyperscaler. We never need any sort of portability. It's Microsoft and Sajid Nadella all day long, forever, ever and ever. Then maybe that's what you want to look for. I've also heard that it's wicked expensive. Like I looked at it a year and a half ago, and when it was still called Azure Stack HCI, and it was prohibitively expensive. So what did Terry say here? I want to see what he said. He said, spent 2 hours troubleshooting cluster aware updates on my 3-node cluster. Wasn't working for my coworker. I ran 2 hours later and it worked. What platform was it? I guess that's the question. Jason says, I don't think MS knows either. When they got rid of the scaled down free version, and then they got rid of essentially like the bespoke version of Hyper-V, I was like, okay, well, they're clearly deprioritizing it because it's not its own separate product. And I mean, it's not its own separate product anyway. If we're being serious, Hyper-V is an application that runs on the Microsoft kernel, right, for your OS. So you can install it in a fat version of Windows Server, and poof, there it is. But yeah, and Leavix was saying that the licenses now for 2025 are brutal. Sad that they're not. Yeah, I agree. I am a big fan, like to toot my horn as if I have any say in any of this stuff. I think that it is really crucial, if I may be so bold, that you make these systems affordable to people who do it in their home lab. Like that's just been like, I feel like that's like, if I could get that tattooed somewhere on my body, it would be like, it should be free. I'm not saying you run your business on it because that's not the intention. The same thing with VMware. When Broadcom took away ESXi free, I was like, you just killed that on-ramp for new engineers who would otherwise have learned and played with this to be able to come in and do the job. And so I don't have I'm not a fan of that when that stuff gets pulled out, for sure. And Skylar said, I also hate how Windows Server 2025 looks like Windows 11. Well, yeah, but that's what it is. It is Windows 11, right? They're the same kernel, right? There's more services and bits and bobs that are related. So you can always install the what is it called? The GUI-less version, which is the core, right? You can go core and just do everything through PowerShell and remote management services. But anyway, yeah. but modern design. Thanks. I appreciate that, Brandon. Okay. So let's switch gears because we have a great crowd and I want to show you guys this. If any of you have been, let's say, followers of the channel for a long time, and if not, I'm just happy to have you. Thank you for watching. Appreciate and love you all. I did a video about Teapot CE, which is a honeypot that is run by Deutsche Telekom. The Deutsche Telekom has a security department, and they make this turnkey honeypot solution that anyone can install on any Linux, Unix file system or operating system, and then you can run your own honeypot. And the video was more about like how it only took like 10 seconds for the bad guys to hit me, and it did. It was like literally 10 seconds. But I thought, you know what? We have people now in this audience. We have live people. Let's play it. So we're gonna take a look at it. So first off, this is their GitHub. So the way this basically works is you install any one of your standard Linux distros of choice. I'm using Ubuntu Server 2404. And then from there, you basically run a curl command to, or you download it through a git pull, and then you run this curl command and boom, it's done. Actually, they even built the script that you can just run this instead. So I did an extra step. And when it's done, you get something, and you get it started up. You get a web page that looks like this. This is, by the way, this is on the outside. This address right here, because Brandon and I went over this, when we were pre-gaming for the show. That address, I'm not even showing you this stuff. Thank you, Brandon. Let's put that on the screen. Cool, guys. Let's go back to this and be like, here. So this is the GitHub for this, if you guys want to run it. And it runs on, like I said, Ubuntu Linux. Back, rewind, fast forward, back to where we're at. So this is the web GUI for it. And it's reactive. I can push around these things. As I said, this IP address that you can see right here, if you zoom in, this is not my IP address. This is yet another public IP address. And for the record, it's not anywhere near my current IP address. And I just want to put that out there because there's always somebody who's like, you just showed your public IP address. You just doxed yourself, bro. Like, no. Anyway, let's go look at a few things. So the first thing that always gets a lot of love is the map, the attack map. And this thing will have to refresh because it always hangs after a little bit here. So we'll do a quick refresh on it. And we'll watch this just for a second. And as it comes back in, this is running on an old like Core i7 7th or 8th gen CPU that I've got down on the floor. You can't see it. You probably can hear it whining because it whines like crazy, but it's down there. Okay, come on, guy. How about we reopen it? Because opening things is fun. And you start to see in real time the attacks. Now, since we've got people on here watching this, I think that you could all like pop open an SSH and try to SSH to this IP address right here. And we would see you pop up on this map. I'm not saying I want you to do that, but I'm saying you could do it and we would see it. And yes, sure. Follow what Brandon said. Like if you're going to do something like this, there's actually more other things that we can talk about. Like running a teapot has other real like ramifications, especially if you do. So as I will say up front first, don't run this if you have a single IP address that is your only IP address, whether it's a static address or you have like DHCP and you only get one address at a time, because this will quickly and effectively get your IP address blacklisted by all of the reputable sources. Because a lot of these things out here that you're seeing that are pinging, I mean, some of these are clearly sus, but like I was looking earlier, like this guy right here that seems to like to attack me. Let's see what this address. So I'll just copy the said address. We're gonna boop. We'll jump over to our friends at Shodan, throw that address in. Who does this belong to? It belongs to Palo Alto Networks. So I can tell you right now that the thing that is effectively and actively scanning me from this address right here, that's one of their, one of these scanning tools that's on the interwebs trying to find like vulnerabilities or things. And so, well, it's okay. It'll be all right. So let's, we'll come back to this in a little bit and see this thing kind of mature, but I want to show you some of the stuff. So I've been running this since like 10 a.m. this morning. Things when I finally spun it back up. And if I make this full screen, does it take away the border? Yes, it does. So since 10 a.m. Pacific time, right? And it is, what is it now? It's like almost 6 o'clock Pacific time. There have been 16,000 discrete attacks. These are the different honeypots, and they do different things. Like you can obviously guess what they are, but we can scroll through these, and we'll take a look at the discrete ones here in a second. As we scroll through here, one of the things that it it will give you the usernames and passwords that the scripters have tried, and um, there's the ones that are like clearly the 1 2 3 4 5 6 and like admin 1 2 3. Clearly, these are probably above board automatic scanners who are just like checking to make sure that it's lets you in, right? But there's always some of these interesting ones like DivRye, and it's just going to update on us, which is super cool. There was some really interesting email, cool. Tomcat, that's my password. I don't know what's yours. And these are the commonly used attempted Postgres, whatnot. But there is so much attacking going on. And as an aside, this is one of the reasons why a really solid firewall that gives you a lot of good information and monitoring is really, really beneficial, right? Because these guys are out there trying to take advantage of you if you were just to plug your system in. I believe that everybody in my audience here is fully aware, and they are all above board with all of their home firewall stuff. And if you're not, then this is why you should be, right? And guys, like as an aside, in my day job, we found like employees that have accidentally plugged in directly to the internet with their computers because they wanted to go fast, and they had problems at home with their network, and so they went fast. Right, like Levick said, this is another good reason to not expose anything to the internet if you don't need to. Cloudflare tunnels, really great way to get something out to the internet and get some protection in front of it. That's what we use for the Two Guys Tech website, right? It's hosted by me, but Cloudflare fronts it, so Cloudflare does a whole bunch of like mitigation and stuff like that. Uh, oh my gosh, I mean that's my password, so I'm starting to realize maybe that's not a good password. But let's go look at some of the detailed stuff we can look at. So there's Teapot CE has just a ton of different dashboards, right? And they do these are specific to the types of honeypots that they are. And a lot of these, we can see that Cowrie here, COWRIE, is a SSH and a Telnet honeypot. So we can see the ports that they've got. You can see the distribution, see everywhere in the world that has decided that they want to just check and make sure that I don't have it open. And we get all of these. These are, when you connect over SSH, right, your SSH client will provide information about what it is, right? And so a lot of this stuff is, I would even imagine some of this is fake, right? Because, they don't necessarily have to tell you the truth when they do it. But lots of interesting stuff. And there was one here. Oh yeah, this is on the SSH side. This is one of my favorite parts. This guy right here shows you the commands that were run because it logs in. What is a honeypot? Man, I should probably start with that. A honeypot is a system that pretends to be a thing, right? Like an SSH server that any username and password that you send to it, it's just going to be like, oh, access granted. And then they're in there. And so its job is to learn about what TTPs, techniques and tactics that people are using to do bad things on the interwebs, right? I know I probably don't need to describe this to everybody, but honeypots will also record the stuff, and it's used for security investigation in terms of like what bad stuff are the leading edge hackers doing. And so here we can see like these are the commands that were run when they got into the system. They popped in and wrote and typed in this. I don't know what this does. I'm not going to do it, but it's something that they tried. And I just love that we can see these things, and I love data. Y'all love data, right? Because that's what this really is. It's just like lots and lots of data. So you can see the ASNs, where they came from, right? You can see what part of these are the networks on the internet that they came from. IP addresses, passwords, breakdowns, and then Brazil. I think these are called ribbon graphs. You guys can tell me if they're called ribbon graphs or what. I can't remember what these are called, but just just some serious data about you know the where people come from, what they're doing, the things they attempted, and let's keep moving on to the other some of the other dashboards here. Well, let me pop back to this. One of the other big dashboards that was uh, Dianea. So let's go find the Dianea dashboard. There's a log4j dashboard, or for for log4j attempts, and that stuff is still going on there. Dianea. There's pages, people. There are pages. Suricata, Dianea. There it is. So we'll take a look at this, and we can see what is Dianea pulling up. So Dianea is show me your ports. Okay, so different. I'm not sure. 445 is going to be Active Directory. Like if you had a Windows computer or a server on the internet, right? The 445. 21 is FTP. I'm not sure what 81 is. If you know what it is, call it out in the chat. 1433 and 27017. I'm not sure what those are. Those are, but they're lots of attempts at 445, which is I said 443, 445, which is the port for SMB file sharing for Windows. But yeah, just like someone at Microsoft, like I'm guessing that these days a lot of this stuff, like I said earlier, is just scanners out there. But speaking of that, let's go Control Tab. Is that the right word? No, I want to show you my secrets. I don't want to show you my secrets. I want to go back to this so we can see some of the stuff there. It's kind of got a little quiet. I blame you guys. But I, again, love data and I love the details. Like these sort of things, to be able to look into this and see what the bad guys are doing, where they're going, what they're attempting. And like I said, this is an entirely free project. You can run it. You can run it in a virtual machine. Just again, I do. So Terry, that's a good question. So put that there. I actually professionally, I do, not personally. So let's open a new tab so we can see that. Control T. Yeah. So what Terry's talking about are canary files or canary tokens. That's what we want to do. So canary tokens are essentially little files or bits of data that when somebody opens them, it will send you an email or a message saying that somebody accessed this thing, right? And canary tokens are entirely free. They are something that anyone can download and set up. Like you can just like, let's find one here. One that actually makes sense that I can show you here. Obviously, they've really expanded this out. But there was one I did earlier. So like here, you can type in your email address. You can put a reminder in this, and you can even do a webhook if you want to throw it to like Slack or Discord or something like that. And then you create this token, and it'll give you this as a PDF. We're looking at a PDF token, and you put that PDF somewhere in your file system, whether it's at home or at work or someplace like that. And if somebody opens said file, there's something in this case, the PDF that will call back, like, I'm going to pull down an image or something like that. And that image is a unique GUID that's going to be tied to what you set up here. And you can email saying, heads up, somebody opened a thing. So in the professional day job, like the security stuff I do, we will scatter these things around and it's not so we can catch. Also, to be clear, you don't do this because you're trying to catch people like in your organization or employees that are sniffing around, although that can happen. So don't click on things you shouldn't, but more like these are canary in the coal mines in case, what if there's a bad actor on your network and you don't know it, and they're going through your file systems and they're looking around, looking for useful bits of data that they can use to either exfiltrate, like get access to something. Like imagine leaving an API key to an S3 bucket or something online. That's heavy value to somebody who's in your network trying to do bad stuff, and you can know. And then from there, you can try to figure out what's going on. So again, canary tokens. Let's pop this up here. canarytokens.org. It doesn't cost you anything. It's totally free. And the company that runs it is Thinks Canary. They're a security company, and they make actual security software that your business can run. It's not for people to run at home. So it's super cool that they do this as just like a free service as part of it. So highly recommend. Thank you for the reminder, Terry, because that's super cool stuff right there. Yeah, it's great. And again, if something's free and you can use it to add a little bit of protection, or take it to work and be like, hey, if we just put these files there and someone opens it, then we know that somebody's snooping. Like create an Excel spreadsheet that says employee salary.xlsx and then just see if it opens and then go find out who's snooping. I'm not a big fan of like attacking people, so don't get me wrong. I just want people to do their job. Skylar asks, what'd you ask, Skylar? Do you know of any 2FA Windows login tools that you can use? You want to be able to keep your servers and computers secure. Yes, I do, but they depend on like the problem with not using a unified MFA platform like Microsoft, Azure, or something, or some of the big expensive ones, is that it ends up being like part in like bits and pieces. I host Nextcloud for transferring data. That's part of that's how I move data between systems and move data between Brandon and John and that kind of stuff. And they require MFA, but the MFA is controlled via that, and it works. It creates they call it a TOTP, or a temporal one-time password. There you go. So BK's got something to throw that up there, BK, because I have not spent any time with Authentic, but I do know it exists. Skylar, we have a Discord, and so I highly recommend. I think that we've got at least one guy in our Discord who spent some time working with Authentic, and so you can always ping him and see what that comes up with. So that's a good option. Throw up the Discord link, BK. Let's get that up there so we can see it. Where are we at? Let's go back to this. More things. I want to look through a few more of these. Anyway, so there are just like, I think this stuff is super cool. I like seeing where the bad guys are coming from. Let's go look at the Cisco ASA. Anyone who's using Cisco ASA these days should not be on an ASA. They're end of life. Get away from those. But there are vulnerabilities in the ASAs. So, and the bad guys are trying. Romania and the United States. But yeah, so highly recommend this. But there's one other thing I was going to say here. If I move, I got to go like this. Hold on. Sorry, guys. There's more functionality that they offer here in Teapot. CyberChef is like a bunch of tools that allow you to convert things and modify data, change data formats, all this stuff. And this is something that's just built in and free. You can also install this in your HomeLab too. There are CyberChef containers that you can run, and I think there might even be like a downloadable one. But CyberChef is so Sky said Cisco Duo is free for 10 users, which I guess is good for Home and HomeLab. Yeah, the thing is, dude, I don't think I like Cisco all that much to let them in there. That's my only like trepidation to it. So there's that. Like, I guess you got to pick your bedfellows in that case, right? So let's go back here. Elastic View is what we were just looking at, right? That's essentially the view of all the nice dashboards. Kibana is the back end that they use here for storing stuff. Sorry, that's the wrong thing. I need to go back to, I got them backwards. Let's see if I can make this work. I haven't actually, closer, just test connection. Connect. So all the data that you get collected in your honeypot, you can then like get the raw information out of, right? And so it's using Logstash as the storage medium, but you can pull in and look at this data. Let's see if we can grab some of it out of here. Indices, show me data. And so then you can see specific data. Those dates are really useless. Let's find a better index that has, this one's got more segments in it. So we can see the IP addresses. You can see that the data is stored in there. So this is like really nice. If you want to take that data, yeah, we're going to talk about it, Adam. We're going to get there in a second because I wanted to actually, how are we doing on time? Okay, we're doing all right. I am not running. We'll move on. What do you think? You guys had your fill of this? Because if not, then I highly recommend you download it, get on there. Spiderfoot is an OSINT tool that lets you can do searches for IP addresses and URLs and find information about it, and it pulls in a bunch of data. Some of the data is not so actually useful. Let me zoom this in a little bit. So some of the data you pull out is not super great. So don't be surprised if you, because it's an OSINT, like open source information gathering tool. So take it for what it's worth. It is what it is. Um, we'll put a link down in the show notes so that you guys can, if you're again into this and you want to try it on your own. I used to run this in VMware as a separate box, but make sure you've got, anytime you're doing anything like this with a virtual host, I recommend you have a discrete network card so that you have a discrete Ethernet interface and not something where you might mix up VLANs and all of a sudden, poof, has access to your network. So take that for what it's worth. That would just be, I highly recommend it. We can move on here. Talked about honeypots. Yeah, so I want to talk about Unify and kind of give you some background too, because it's kind of it might be out of the blue. So my network at home, my edge is pfSense Plus. That's what I use. That's my firewall of choice, and it's my router on a stick, meaning that it is used for all my VLAN, inter VLAN routing. So certain VLANs are islands, if you will, like my IoT network. Things in the IoT network can't get to other subnets because they're IoT devices. They're supposed to be out. They can only go out to the internet. Meanwhile, client networks and server networks are entirely like fluid between them. So I can connect to servers, servers can connect to me and all that kind of fun stuff. And I have a buddy that is just starting his, probably, I don't know how to describe it other than he's getting into home labbing. But people they don't wake up one day and go into home labbing and they're like, boom, I have a bunch of stuff. I mean, maybe some do. Everyone starts with just a little bit and then a little bit more and a little bit more. And then they're like, hey, I think I need a rack. It's just small. You start with something small. And eventually, VLAN Voyage, I love it. And eventually you end up with an actual entire home lab and you're doing all this crazy stuff. But he's at the beginning stages. Like he just had an Asus router and he had a Unify access point that I think at one time had just kind of configured with the app on the phone. Pretty low key, like nothing special. And he's like, well, hey, I want to upgrade some stuff. What do you suggest? And so I said to him, look at it, go Unify route for you. It's really easy because people hearing me talk about pfSense, and I think the pfSense is incredibly powerful, and obviously I'm using it because I think it does a good job. I think it's enterprise grade, and I wish they wouldn't have pulled the goofy stuff they did with the CE version, but whatever. Adam said Cloudflare tunnels have changed his life. I agree. I'm going to stop doing that, Brandon. You're good enough to do that. But I said to him, why don't you just get yourself a UDM Pro and get a UDM Pro SE? Because then let's open that as a tab so we can look at it. So we can go to the, cool. So I suggested to him that, because he wants something better. He wanted to do VLANs. He wanted to break out his IoT stuff. He wanted to do kind of a lot of the similar stuff that I do, but obviously not to the level of absurdity that a true home lapper does. And so I said, get a UDM, get yourself where is that? Unified Cloud Gateways, yeah. So I said, get yourself UDM stands for Unified Dream Machine. That's a UDM, and then I guess it's not called UDM Pro SE. It's just called a UDM SE, whatever names. But recommended this because it can be his unified controller. There are stupid animations. Who doesn't love animations? But moreover, the big thing is it's got a bunch of PoE, so you can connect up your access points. And I said, get this thing. We'll get you a small little rack that you can mount on the wall. I got himself like a 9U rack, and threw it in. And I said, on one of my days off or my weekend, I will stop by and we will just do it. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I had long time ago, I had tried out when the UDM Pro came out. I tried it out. And I'm like, this thing is trash. I don't want it. It wasn't good. It didn't have great functionality. It just wasn't great. So I shipped it back to him and said, no, thank you. I don't want this. And, I left it at that. And so obviously, if we go back to, where's that? Where I don't want to talk about this. So, I'm obviously using Unify because Unify has a really nice, the GUI, the self-hosted is a big sell for me, right? But the self-hosted is super nice, and having the APs are good quality. I basically said, we'll do it on the weekend, we'll do it on the evening. And then that night I get like a phone call from the guy and he's like, it's basically done and it's working. And I had this realization that Ubiquity has finally, I think, finally done it. And done what, Rich? I think they finally figured out how to make their products be user friendly enough that people who don't necessarily have a deep background or knowledge or understanding about certain stuff when it comes to networking can really pull it off in a way that has just become kind of like the status quo for buying a TP link or buying an ASUS. Like he plugged it in, connected it up, chose his IP addresses, and I'm sure there's a wizard that he walked through a GUI setup for it, and he was up and running. This is not his. This is mine, right? And it really got me realizing, like, oh shoot, like maybe I need to try to give Unify another go, especially the UDM stuff. So Brandon, who's running behind the scenes for us right now on this, he is a UDM SE user. Like it's his whole network. This is mine. This is, you can see all the stuff I've got. My core switch, which is what is I got to look at my Unify devices. So the core switch I've got in my network is oh look, I have updates to do. I don't want to do that now. Not when we're right. No, live show. Everything's gone, friends. Whoopsie. So I have a USW Aggregation Pro 10 gig switch that with the 25, and I use the 25 for connecting to servers, and then everything else is 10 gig. That's the core. So why is it core? It's the core for me specifically because it is my STP route, my spanning tree RSTP route. So it is the master, which is also incidentally why this looks like this, is because this is the STP master, and then everything else is like shades of degree of priority less, so that it knows who's the boss when it comes to spanning tree announcements and who to listen to. Highly recommend, if you have a network at home that has spanning tree functionality, make sure you set your STP route stuff up, because it'll make things a lot nicer, and you'll get really nice charts like this, graphs like this, that don't show things like in weird locations. This only looks like this because of STP is set up properly. Anyway, so I guess the realization is, I think it's time that I take another look at the UDM stuff. I know Brandon mentioned that they added zone firewall policies in Unify 9, which is really nice. And what did Skylar say here? Skylar said, you bought a UDM Pro in 2020 when the UDM was new. And okay, so I think that's probably when I end up with mine too. But at the time, it didn't compare in terms of functionality to what I was using in pfSense. And so I just didn't stick around for it. Watch me drink some liquids. Okay. But yeah, so everything here. And yes, this is not great, friends. You can quietly judge me all you want about how I've got my network laid out, but I have a house that doesn't have networking in the walls. So I have singular runs, and so the core switch goes to my top of rack switch, and this is Ethernet. And then top of rack goes into the house, and then the house I daisy chain until I get to my office and all that kind of stuff. And there's APs all throughout the place. And this is a pass through, by the way. It's not actually, through it. But at any rate, so I'm gonna give it a shot and give it a chance and actually look at what the metrics look like these days, because it's I'm pretty impressed. But I would love to know what you guys are using. So by all means, it sounds like some we got a mix of Ubiquity and some pfSense. So Jason said down here, let's get Jason's message up there. Jason said, I did Omada pfSense before. Netgate irritated me with the whole free. Yeah, dude, this was what Jason's talking about. Is there was a point where pfSense pulled some, what I would consider, or Netgate, the company who makes pfSense, pulled some kind of shady stuff. And essentially, there was a HomeLab version of pfSense. It was called pfSense, or it was a HomeLab version of pfSense Plus, and that's what I was using because I was using it on my own gear. And like a lot of people, and then they basically pulled it and said, you go back to CE, and you have to pay for this. And it was kind of it was a bum deal. I did not dig that, but what Levick said here, you do the same. You have flat cables running there. Yeah, I don't. It's certain. I don't know at what point houses that are being manufactured now just have Ethernet in the walls instead of telephone cords. Like my house is like one big continuous run of a single Cat5 cable that they broke into like telephones. Like I don't even have a telephone. It's 20. I mean, it's 2025, but like even before that, I don't have a landline. What my parents' house? My parents don't even have a landline. No one's got a landline these days. Anyway, so I used that cable and just like punch in, punch out at different locations, and that's why this kind of looks like that. It's just what it is. Oh, sorry. Last of it. Night Home Tech says he uses Cisco all day at work, but Unify runs their home lab and entire house. We'll do a YouTube video. So you do it. Yeah, I in Night Home Tech, join our Discord. There's a place where you can post your video in our, we call it our self promote thing. So I'd love to be able to see it. There's just so much, uh, so many great videos that people are making and showing off their gear. So I definitely dig that. Yeah, and so yeah, Jason, you're right. And from my understanding, I think that the Netgate PFSense Plus debacle was because of those like what was the name of the router company that, or they make little computers that were like they had a bunch of fins on them and you could buy them dirt cheap. And I think that they were actually selling them and delivering them with PFSense installed. And I think that was the thing that really was it Firewalla? Brian said Firewalla, but I'm trying to remember what it was. I don't think it was Firewalla. Let's go to Protectly. That's it. Levix has got it. It was Protectly. That's it. Yeah, Mr. Keck got it too. That's so they were shipping this with PFSense Plus, and we're like, yep. And I mean, so again, I don't blame them for being upset. Like, what do you, if it's coming out of China? It's not like you can be like, I'm going to sue you, because depending on where you are as a company and how much your financial, you know, how deep your wallet is or pockets are, it's kind of hard to go after those people. So, I mean, they made the change, and that's fine. What did Shadow Technology say here? I left PFSense once they pulled the shenanigans. Yep. And you went to UDM Pro. Yeah, I'm telling you, like, knowing that they have kind of bridged some of that, like, stuff that was problematic. I'm thinking about doing it. We'll see. I mean, I did just purpose. Oh, so Skylar said, "Have you tried OpenSense at all?" No. So I know lots of people who run OpenSense and they think it's great. Um, but I don't have a justifiable reason to like it. If well, I have seen the UI, and I think that after a certain while, in a lot of cases, people start to carve a groove in themselves in terms of like the expected user experience. And the thing that really drew me to PFSense over any of the other firewall software that was out there is that I came from, in the professional world, I came from like checkpoints and Palo Altos and stuff like that. And so there's a very specific way that those established firewall companies would lay out rules and how you could kind of look at it and they'll say, I understand this now. I know how I know how packet filtering works, and I can see this very clearly, and it was fine. And so with PFSense, I was like, I saw that in there as well. I was like, okay, this is, I can do. So I haven't looked at it in a long time, but we've plenty of people in the Discord who do use it and swear by it. But if I remember correctly, and you guys can keep me honest here, I think that like even Tom Lawrence has, not to name drop, but even Tom Lawrence has mentioned that the way that they do it is they don't really contribute back to BSD or as much, and so that's kind of like a reason to less support them. But they do make hardware, and they looks like it's pretty powerful hardware too, just like the same stuff that, I mean, it's all x86 hardware, right? I don't think they, unless you're talking about the tiny boxes, most of their big 10 gig, 20 gig, multi gig stuff is all like small Xeon Ds and whatnot. What did Adam say? Adam said, you kind of missed the old days running Tomato on your WRT 54G. The little plastic boxes. Do we? Oh, man, now you're making me nostalgic for the way it used to be. These guys. WRT 54G. This is gonna make me feel like an old man. These things, like, wait, this is in stock on Amazon right now. Who is buying these? Hey guys, it's got 802.11G. We can get right on that. Buy it new. Where are these coming from? Yeah, I remember these too. I remember there was like everyone had like a small stack of these. You had the Linksys, and then you had the same shaped network switch that you put below it, right? The days were simpler days. Those were the simpler days. Yeah. Shadow Technology say the only reason you're not a full Unify is that you don't have large switches with lots of 10 gig ports. Working on bonding 20 gig interfaces for Proxmox Center cluster. Yeah, and the way I answered that myself. And I'm gonna try to stop seeing this. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, there it is. Is this guy right here for me is the reason why it's called my core switch. Is this guy's got these SFP 28 ports in them, and just one of them is more than enough to. I'm like, who am I kidding? You guys can see some of my throughputs, right? Like I'm not breaking the bank here. Like this is a summary. I'm not sure how long the summary runs for. It doesn't really show me the duration, but I don't need more than 10 gig, but baby, I love more than 10 gig. So like this goes to one dedicated server, this goes to another. This one right here is actually plugged into the Proxinator downstairs. And so I have a single 25 gig for that. And then I have some spare overhead here for other stuff. But enterprise campus aggregation. What does that look like? Let's go see if we can find that, shall we? Over here. Where's that? Go back. Switching. Enterprise campus right there. Oh my gosh. Yes. Unify, sponsor me. Look at that thing. $4,000. So this is what? This is 48 ports of 25 SFP 28 and 6 QSFP 28. So 6, 10, or 100 gig. Oof. The thing is, if you're into this level, like let's have an argument. Let's have a debate here, friends. You can spend if I was to say to you, you can spend $4,000 on this guy over here. I can't see it because of where the arrow's pointing. Spend $4,000 on this guy, or you could spend that same amount of money on something from Juniper, or what's the other one that HPE owns, and get that same sort of performance. Which one would you choose? Yeah. So yeah, that's exactly. And so it's kind of like when you start to talk about these dollar values, then I wonder how much Unify really pays out, because this is big boy stuff. When you have that much of backbone, leaf, and spine, however your network is kind of laid out, that's a lot. That's a lot of performance. That's true. That is okay. So there's that. BK is right. No subscription with Unify. That's true. But you also get real warranty support from. Actually, that's a great question. Unify or Ubiquiti hasn't been really great with warranty support. When you start to talk about like values and costs like this, I wonder if you can actually get real support from them for systems like this, because Juniper, you can buy support and be good all day long, right? But yeah, I don't know. That's a great question, and I don't know what I would choose. If I was a business, I probably wouldn't choose Unify. I don't know. Small business, yes, but small businesses don't need this, right? So Adam B said he'd go with a whole stack, 2.5 gig for plug and play with more clients. Yeah, the switch I'm using right now for my, where's it at? Gotta find it. Sorry guys, just the magic of. Okay, that's not gonna work anymore. Let's go over here. I'm using my top of rack switch is overkill as well. It's a enterprise 24 PoE, but these are all 2.5, and then there's 10s on the end here. So I have up to multi-gig there, which is beneficial. And most of it's almost entirely filled and full. And most of the stuff that's in the top of the rack is going to be like, here's an out-of-band management for the Synology, and these are my lights out boards, my ILOs for different servers, and APs, and you can see some hubs and miscellaneous shit that I've got in there. And I bring my Ziply in because I have 2 gig Wi-Fi or 2 gig internet from Ziply. It comes in as a 2.5 interface, and then it gets ingested. But if you have a lot of 10 gig Juniper or Arista all day long, yeah, I don't know where the dividing line is yet. I feel like when we start to see this, when we start to see really good, like high speed hardware coming from Ubiquity, then it starts to be like, where's the line? At what line do you go? I want to go enterprise grade. And I mean, they put the word enterprise on here, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not enterprise grade, but like traditionally a business wouldn't look at Unify, like a midsize or a larger business wouldn't look at Unify as the foundation. They'd be using Cisco or something like that, or Juniper, right? I'm using Juniper right now, or Arista. That's the other one. But I wonder what the point is. Like, you guys tell me, at what point would you tear out your Juniper, Cisco, Arista switches and move to Ubiquity in a company of, I don't know, 2,000, 4,000 people, right? That's a good question. Adam B, I'm stuck with the old PoE 24 port because you have a G3 Flex cameras and they use passive 24 volt PoE, which Unify. Oof, yikes. Time for an upgrade. I guess you can just start upgrading those cameras, right? That's going to be your long pole in the tent, so to speak. But yeah, spoiler alert. I'm going to put that up there. It's good. Spoiler alert, don't run a 5100 next to you. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm with you, guys. We try to keep this at an hour, and we're like plowing through it. So, is there anything else I wanted? I don't know. I have a bunch of news topics, but I feel like we've kind of hit the limit. Thank you guys all. I'm gonna switch back to just my face because that's what I want here. Let's go to this one. Hello. I appreciate having you guys on. This has been a great conversation. My wife thinks that I should sell these, like, designs, and I'm not sure if I should. So I'd be interested to know if you guys think we should or not. Brandon's putting up the Discord thing. Discord's free. Hop in and BS with me and Brandon and John and in the community. It's a great place to keep in touch. Highly recommend that. The HomeLab Gear. This is where all the real stuff that I make, we sell, that helps pay for the channel and kind of help do the things that we do. And there's the Two Guys Tech website. Thank you, Brandon. There it is. Boom. Look at that. And we have a podcast and everything too, which we were supposed to talk about, but I didn't. So you can get to it from there. Thank you guys so much. I am having such a blast doing this. I hope you guys are having a good time too. We will, what do you say we do this next week? You got time? Cool. All right. Thank you. Dream about, oh, hold on. You know, sir, you don't get to leave with that. You dream about Hyper-V. No way. All right, guys. Have a fantastic week, rest of your week, and we'll see you next week.